Hey everybody, I have a video here for you today. This is by request. Let's document another ancient America site. Now, I did a video in Florida about a week ago. This is another site, and I had a few messages on this. I found a few things that I thought were pretty interesting. This is the Crystal River Archeological State Park. Here is the site next to a home division here. This was named a historical site in 1970. Seems pretty good. Historical preservation has gone on here. Let's turn this around, give you a look at what this used to look like. There's a total of 6 major mounds here. And let's just give you a little look at what this place used to look like. The site features at least 3 flat-top pyramid mounds, a large plaza, 2 burial mounds, and 3 erect standing stones referred to as Stelae. The flat-top pyramid mounds are the first such architectural features in Florida and perhaps the entire southeastern United States. And I'm sure there's some debate on that issue. The mound and plaza site plan is the earliest such site plan north of Mexico. The T-shaped flat-top pyramid mound is unique in the U.S., its construction method being most likely of limestone rocks is rare in the southeastern United States and the first in Florida. The central burial mound, Mound F, is surrounded by a circular embankment of sand, which is called Mound C, which is right here. And does that form a moon with the star in the middle? There's some debate about that. It says the 2 structures form what archaeologists call the main burial complex. Exotic artifacts unearthed from the central burial mound showed a trade connection with the Hopewell civilization of Ohio. The Crystal River site was the southernmost site with such exotic Hopewell artifacts. Another burial mound at the site was Mound G, showed no signs of exotic artifacts. The difference in grave goods suggests one burial mound was for the elites and the others for the commoners. Some of these elite goods included jewelry such as ear flares made from copper, overlaid with silver and meteoric iron. Really? Which helps paint a picture of how the elites of the site adorn themselves, and it says meteoric iron. That's interesting. Here are just a few of the ornaments manufactured from conch shells at the Crystal River site. Here is what they call Stelae 2, pretty much blank, but may have been covered in decorations a long time ago. Here is some of the pottery with some very Mayan-looking glyphs on them. Here's a bear tooth. That pottery. Here's a look down from the mound at the waterway here. Here's a look at one of the main platform pyramid mounds. Now this is Trail of Florida IndianHeritage.com. I will leave a link below. It says visited by up to 10,000 people a year when it was at its peak in history. This is one of the longest continually occupied sites in Florida. A National Historic Landmark, this 61-acre, 6-mound pre-contact Native American site has burial mounds, temple platform mounds, and a plaza area, and a substantial midden. It says for more than 1,900 years, this site on the Crystal River, with access to the Gulf of Mexico, served as a ceremonial center where people traveled from great distances to celebrate events, bury their dead, and conduct cultural and practical trade. How far back does this site go? It says about 10,000 years ago, the Crystal River area was a home to small bands of nomadic hunter and gatherers called, for no better word, Paleo-Indians. Nomads are people that travel from place to place in order to find enough food to feed their families. The groups were made up of extended family members or clan groups related by blood that were led by the wisest elder or person who could provide the best leadership for the group. So this site, the dating of human evidence here goes back about 10,000 years. But it says, as the sea level rise began to slow down, stable coastlines developed, large shallow grass flats formed and provided a home for many different types of saltwater fish. The saltwater of the Gulf of Mexico mixed with the fresh water flowing from the rivers of the region. When the mix was right about 6,500 years ago, an estuary ecosystem formed, making it possible for many other marine animals to live there. Oysters were a good source of plentiful food growing in the newly emerging estuary. As the estuary emerged, the Native Americans continued to use the marine animals for food. They became settled fisher folk and by about 2,500 years ago began to live year-round near Crystal River. Archaeologists have known about this site for over a century. You are looking at Clarence Bloomfield Moore and he excavated here in 1903, 1906, and 1917. He created the first map of the site. Clarence Bloomfield Moore lived from 1852 to 1936, and he spent 20 years documenting and doing research on mound sites in Florida. And many of these sites have been destroyed, and his work is the only research paper done on a lot of these missing, destroyed, lost sites. But it talks about the burials and the artifacts that were found here. It says the burials were accompanied by rich ceramic inventory, including incised and modeled pottery, tetrapodal and negatively painted vessels, whatever that means, vast quantities of shell and stone plummets, shell dippers, cut shell ornaments, and exotic smoking pipes, green stone celts, sheets of cut mica, and copper conjoined tubes, plates, discs, and ear spools. It said copper tubes. That's pretty strange. Now, not only does the layout of the city and the stone stela and a few other things remind me of a Mayan origin, there was also some good work done here by a Gary Daniels, and he found artifacts here that certainly had Mayan-looking glyphs on them. But just reading a little bit here, it says the stela, their spatial relationships in the ceremonial deposits, are evidence of influences from southeastern Mexico. To the above evidence, I add the possibility that Mayan glyphs and religious symbols appear both on pottery and the landscape, i.e. geoglyphs, at the Crystal River site, further supporting the hypothesis that the Mayans really had a lot to do with this place. Vessel number 1 from the Crystal River site is a highly decorated pot with designs inscribed on both sides of the vessel, as well as the bottom. Archaeologist Clarence B. Moore noted in his 1903 paper, Mound near the Shell Heap, Crystal River, Citrus County, that a design on the bottom of the vessel featured a cross-shaped symbol with 4 circles, each within one of 4 quadrants of the cross. And that certainly has relationship to the Mayan Lamat glyph, which can be seen here in the catalog of hieroglyphics from the Mayan, and this has a relationship to Venus. As this glyph has associations with abundance and fertility, as well as death and rebirth. It has associations with the feathered serpent deity known as Quetzalcoatl to the Mexicans and Kukulkan to the Maya. So a super important glyph, Mayan glyph, found at Crystal River. Here are some more artifacts with Mayan designs on them. A Mayan flint knife there at the bottom. It says 2 pottery fragments from the Crystal River site appear to represent the Mayan Ek glyph. Ek means star in Mayan, and it also has associations with Venus. For instance, Venus was known as Chak Ek, which translates as the Great Star. And here is the Mayan Ek glyph, which has similarities to that design on that pottery. Now, Gary Daniels, who did the research connecting this to the Mayans, did some great work here, I think. Here is Mound H. What does this represent? Well, here, and Mound H is identical to the Mayan Ik glyph, which you see right here. This represents wind, air, breath of life and spirit, and it has associations with Quetzalcoatl and Kukulkan, and their associations with life, death, and spirit and soul. So that connection, I think, is very cool, because a whole mound is set up to represent that, possibly. So that really got me thinking. Here's a video I made about 3 years ago, the Poverty Point Great Earth Pyramid, and the Mayan glyph, and it makes me wonder about the shape of the large earthen structure at Poverty Point also. Did this have a Mayan or Olmec connection? I'm wondering. Here is an artifact from Crystal River, a diving god or bird diving into the rising sun. Looks like a hand up above. And here is a drawing of the Mayan Diving God with wings. Here is that god close up, descending or diving down. Now, I've been saying since about 2015 that there certainly seems to be connections between the Mound Builders and the Mayans. As archaeologists have noted, there were small limestone blocks detected in the mound fill of Mound H, although at this time they do not believe it was part of the structure or foundations, but it was just kind of added on limestone blocks. The current belief is that the flat top mound served as a stage for public rituals viewed from the plaza that fronts the mound, but further investigations could, of course, change this view. Now, what is pretty unique about this site is there was 3 large stone stelas found, and one of them, up here at the top, appears to have a hummingbird etched into it, but these glyphs are fairly controversial. You know, could these be modern? These stela were apparently aligned with the pyramid platform mounds, and they seem to be a significant part of the site. Now, I've shown many stela from Mayan sites from all around Mesoamerica and Mexico, so this is just another connection. And there are theories. Here you see this hummingbird, and of course there's a hummingbird on the desert floor at Nazca. Does that represent a constellation? Well, I will leave a few links below, but there are different theories. There is supposedly a man on this stela, and maybe some constellations or a map of the night sky. But that is all up for debate. I will leave some links below. These were discovered in 1964, and there was some dating presumably done on some stuff found right in and around these, and these appear to be erected maybe around 1,500 years ago. But remember, the earliest burial here comes from about 2000 BC. It says here, located near the central burial complex are carved marker stones called stela. Stela are often found in the Caribbean, South, or Central American sites. It's unusual to find them in North America. At this site, there was at least 4 of these large stone stelas set up by people who lived here in ancient times. When the stones were located in 1964, Bullen did small excavation around them to collect any evidence that might tell the story of how they were used. Some scientists think they may have been used as a solar calendar to show the change of seasons. These unique ceremonial objects are most often associated with the classical Maya, and their stela were considered to be invested with holiness and perhaps even to contain a divine, soul-like essence that almost made them living beings. The largest stela on the Crystal River has an outline of a human head and shoulders carved into it on one side. The crude carvings show the person represented had long hair and a plume over at the left shoulder. And here is that stela close up, and you can kind of see a face in there. But once again, that is a little controversial. That is my video on the archaeological site at Crystal River, Florida. This is by Crystal River, Beverly Hills, Citrus Hills, 75 miles north of Tampa. Do we have a Mayan connection? Well, the pyramid city layout, glyphs, the stela, other things, it certainly seems to be a strong connection. Were they descendants of the Mayans? Well, the time period, I think maybe they were descendants of who we call the Olmecs, maybe. That is a possibility, but these people seemed not much different than the Mayans, that is for sure. It seems this whole area of the world, people were living the same kind of lives, same symbolism. Ancient America is pretty fascinating. Were they the Mayans? Well, all indications seem to be they were very closely related. Maybe the only thing that prevents us from fully accepting it is that these ruins are in the United States, not in Mexico or Mesoamerica. Hope you thought that was interesting. You all have a very nice day.